everyone, and hopefully you're all getting in, and welcome to our third workshop on Wednesday, as WoW as we like to call it. The last 2 weeks has been very successful, and as we're getting to that stage of more and more business opening, we're just trying to help as much as possible with different aspects that we might need as we get through COVID. So the first week we had health and safety, last week we had HR, and this week we're all about business. We're going to be talking about sales and about the practical sides of operating during and after the COVID, and just how the world has changed, I suppose. So, and then next week we'll be talking about digital media, our final one, which obviously has become very important in the business environment nowadays, and companies have had to change the way they do business. So we're going to help out as much as possible with that. Today we have 3 speakers. We have Anne Conlon from All About Sales. She's going to be doing a presentation. She'll be running through that first. And then we have Aran McMahon from Kavanagh, and he's going to be telling us, I suppose, how he's been operating since the lockdown and maybe the challenges going forward. And then we have John Page from Supervalue Castlebar. And again, he's been operating throughout the COVID. Supervalue didn't close, as we know, and have provided great service to the town. So I just want to thank you all for coming on today. And as we're going along, if you put your name and the name of your business in the chat box, we'll say a quick hello to you. And at the end, if there's any questions, we'll just ask the questions. So firstly, thanks again, and thanks to all our speakers for taking the time out today. I really appreciate it, helping the businesses get back to work. So I'm going to introduce Anne Conlon, All About Sales, for her presentation. Hi, Anne, and thank you.
Hi, John, and thanks so much for inviting me to take part in the workshops on Wednesdays, the WOWs. So for anybody who it may not be familiar with Zoom, at the very top of your screen in the middle of it, it says View Options. So if you click that, and if you want to choose side by side, that means all your pictures and all the lovely photographs of people on the meeting goes to the right hand side, and the screen comes a little bit more comfortable. So if you want to do that, entirely up to yourselves. So thanks, John, for inviting me to come on this afternoon and talk all things business. And it's really great to be coming on to represent Castlebar Town. And, you know, I suppose sometimes we forget about how great our town is. And we won the Rising Star Awards, one of the most prestigious awards last year, for really good reason, because our town is a really strong town and really great businesses in it. So it's great to have these opportunities to see some businesses in town. So in case you don't know anything about me, I first of all started with the retailers Spar and Mace. I worked in their head office, worked on layouts of shops and product designs and different signage and that for the shops. And then I suppose there was a need in our market really for the independent TSN, as they were called, who wasn't big enough for Spar and Mace. So we actually developed, and I was part of that team, to develop the XL brand for the small retailers, all under the umbrella of BWG Foods. But I really found my feet with Value Centre because I loved the business side of things. So I worked with them, and if there was any problems in any of the branches, I've worked in 16 branches in Ireland, where if it was sales, if it was profit margins, if it was stock controls, I would go and I'd sort that problem out. So then I came to Castlebar to manage, to set up a Value Centre, which some people might know beside Call Duffy Roundabout. And then it integrated with our Ballina branches. So I went to work then with Corporate Express Ireland, and then I got a call and was invited to work with the Independent News and Media Group as a sales manager in the west of Ireland a few years ago. So next month, I actually celebrate 10 years of self-employment as All About Sales. And I suppose that's really where my whole passion is, about the whole business side of things. So when John asked me to talk about this, I suppose, first of all, I thought about the whole virus and what's happened in business. And, you know, Cotter's 8-step model for change is something that it's a culture change. And that's really what we're doing at the moment. We're changing the way that we're doing business. So it's a culture change. So the first 3 steps around is creating that change, so it is. So there was a great urgency for us to change our business, so it was. And we also had to have a vision for our change. And then the next 3 steps is really about engaging and enabling the organization. Clear communication became extremely important for our staff to understand what was happening, but also for our customers to know when we were open, what we could sell and how we could sell it to them. So that became really important. And one of the steps that we mustn't forget in this is to celebrate the wins, because we put in milestones, and when we got there, you know, it was a great achievement for our teams, our staff, but also for the customers as well. And then we implemented them. And I suppose we need to be flexible and adapt at all times. So we're building on the change and we're making it stick, which is really important. So when we look at, I suppose, sales and a better business, there's been a shift for the last number of years from customer service to the customer experience. Customer service is giving the customer what it is they've asked you for. The customer experience is going beyond that and going the extra mile. And certainly things have changed because we haven't been able to maybe give the experience that we really want. And the closer we can get to the experience that we had before the virus, the better it is. So one of the things that I used to do on a Monday morning was have coffee actually in Kavanagh. So I can't go into Kavanagh anymore, but I can certainly get their takeaway coffee and have that. And it's keeping in touch with the people that we're used to seeing their faces for. And that's what's been really important, that we keep the contact with our customers and the experience of it. And the more times you go into a business where somebody says, hello, Anne, how's it going? How are things with you? The more comfortable we become in that business as well. And also the shift has come from selling to educating. Instead of always selling to our customers, we need to educate them. In other words, tell them why it's a good idea to buy for us. Last year I was actually working with a chemist group, and one of the things that we did was, obviously we wanted to sell more, but we wanted to educate them first of all and tell them why it was a good idea to buy from us. So when somebody came in maybe with an antibiotic, or maybe they had 2 doses of them, we said it might be a good idea to get a tonic. And the might word is a really soft approach, and you're explaining to the customer why it is a really good idea to do this. And it's not pushy, you're only making a suggestion. So that became really very good for us. And the first Friday of the month, we started to actually do workshops on that. It might be diabetes one month, the next month might be heart attacks. And we made a point of not selling or promoting a product in those talks. And over time, we became experts in our business, and people came in to us to ask us advice. And that's what educating our customers become, because then we create a really loyal customer. And you know something, we sell exactly the same thing. We sell, the more of a problem we find, the more we get to sell. And it's a solution to a problem. So if you're hungry, you go to Kavanagh. That's the problem, you're hungry. The solution is the food. The hairdressers are going to be opening shortly. The problem is our hairs might be getting long, we might need them coloured. So the solution is, that's what they're actually selling. It might be that you need groceries for your food, so you go to Supervalue. So that's the problem, you need food. And the solution is you go to Supervalue and you get your products and services. So no matter who you are, we're all selling a solution to a problem. And the more of a problem we find, the more we get to actually sell. So when we're looking with our customers, it's really important that we sell the main product first. So if I ring up somebody and I'm looking for 2 nights accommodation, that's what we sell first. And then I sell the dinner next, and maybe I sell the spa treatment afterwards. Because if you try to sell it all at the beginning, that's what pushy sales is about. So it's about standing back. And I'm using McDonald's actually as an example to this. If you go in to drive through McDonald's in Castlebar, the first thing they ask you, is that a large meal or is it a medium? And usually they use the word large first. So they try to upsell you first, and then they add on, they do a cross sell. So it's always important that you sell what the customer really wants at the beginning and then do the add-ons afterwards. If you do it the other way around, you become very pushy. So let's look at the steps of the sales itself. There's 8 steps to a sale if you're business to business. And if it's B2C, it's only 7 steps. Your planning really becomes about marketing. So the introduction is welcoming people, and you have 30 seconds to acknowledge a customer when they come into your business. And that is either saying hello to them or saying, hi, how's it going? That's how quick it is when you get into a business. A fact find is usually where people fall down, and the fact find and closing a sale. So that's just asking a few different questions. So it might be a clothes shop, you go in and you're looking for a jacket or something. So you're asking them, you know, what kind of tweed are you looking for? What kind of shape are you looking for? Have you any idea of a color? What is it to go with? So it's all those kind of questions. And sales is really just a fact find to find out, is the customer, what the customer is looking for is something that you are buying. So if you're going to sell advertisements, you go through a what's it as well. You know, what products and services are you looking for? How are you promoting yourself at the moment? What geographical area are you looking for? What customer base are you looking for? What's special about your business and what's the cost of it, which is a what's it. And then when you get those information, you tell the customer about your business using the information you find from the fact find and making a recommendation then. And the minute you make a recommendation, you need to zip it, lock it, and put the key in your pocket. So if you're given a suggestion, maybe it's about a party and some food, what happens is people go silent. And sometimes salespeople think and panic that they've made a mistake, but actually they're having to think about it. So if you can imagine going into one of the shops in Castlebar to buy clothes, maybe it's a jacket. If you're a man, you're looking in the mirror, you're saying, have I a shirt and a tie to go with this? And then you're thinking, have I money to pay for it? If you're a woman, you might be thinking about the dress. And if the sales assistant is beside you talking to you, you actually haven't time to make that decision. So that's when the customer says, do you know what, I'll think about it. And usually when they say that, you've actually made a mistake or you haven't given them enough time to think about it. And then we go on then to the closing of the sale. And you need to ask people sometimes for the business, do you want to go ahead with that? Or you might say, do you want to order the lasagna or do you want to order the roast beef dinner? So you have to actually put the question out to them. The after sales service then is all about the customer experience and handling the objection. And a lot of people say price is an objection. Actually, it's not a true objection. It's a false objection. So while you're going through that, the customers are going through this process. When you're given an approaching the customer an introduction, the customer really should be interested. When you're doing a fact find, their needs must be appreciated. When you're doing the demo, they're seeing your knowledge, and a recommendation, they have a desire to buy. So just remember, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a really good reason. You need to listen twice as much as you talk when we're dealing with customers. And there's been some really great promotions out there over the last while. And one of the really, I think, superheroes is the Send Love, which was on Post. And Post did this for Easter, that you could send cards out to families for free, which was a fantastic promotion, so it was. Brian Thomas have done this now, and they're using their BT as back together again, and a little card saying welcome back to the store, which has been a fantastic idea. And then this morning I happened to get this One for All voucher from 123.ie, giving me back some money from my car insurance. And then when we look around the town, Brafey House did give out pizzas for those that were cocooning, so they also did little toiletry bags. 100 of them went to the hospital as free for the patients that couldn't actually access toiletries. I hear Mulroy's, John, you might be able to confirm this, started to do deliveries to some people who couldn't get into the shops. The Castlebar Chamber of Commerce then did a half a page in the paper, the Connacht Telegraph, promoting the businesses that were open. All our chemist shops started to deliver the prescriptions. I think Local Links then started also to give out some of the supermarkets a handout of all of the grocery shops. And the guards then also came into the community and they helped out as well. And I remember Bernard actually told me that Gerard Deere buys a lot of Connacht Telegraph newspapers and gives them out to those that are cocooning who actually can't get out. So there's been some really great things happening, and it's really great to be part of a community that can actually do that. So that's me. My name is Aran Conlon, all about sales. Love to connect with you. My main place is LinkedIn, and I spell my name with an E, and Conlon, Twitter or Facebook. And I'm around if anybody would like to ask me any questions after that, and to wish the Chamber the very best of luck with your WoW workshops. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Anne. As always, very insightful. And as Anne was saying, it's a new world now, so we kind of have to adjust our business practices and The next person I'm going to introduce is Aran from Rua, and I suppose Aran has adjusted this very quickly. He was one of the first businesses open after the lockdown. So I'm just going to ask Aran a few questions. So you split screen. Okay, Aran, how are you? And thanks very much for doing this today.
Good, John. Thanks a million for the invite. It's a real honor to be invited. And thanks, Anne, for the excellent promotion with the Cafe Road Cup and also your presentation. Much appreciated. Thanks, Anne.
I suppose, Aran, from the start, it kind of came very quickly, the decision for the lockdown. What did your first reaction when you heard about it? Were you in shock, or did you panic, or how did you analyze the decision for businesses to be closed down?
Definitely shock. It was, I think the thing that I think more than anything was the multiple decisions that had to be made in alarming quick succession. And it was related to everything, whether you were going to allow to be open, whether you weren't allowed to be open as a food business, who was staying, who was going, who wanted to stay at work, what safety measures you had to put in place, should you restrict, like it literally was a tsunami of having to make decisions around every facet of your business. And that's if you were allowed to stay open. Thankfully, we developed part of our business and have been over the last few years as a food shop. But even that became unrecognizable from the business that it was before COVID. Our restaurants obviously shut immediately. We have a cafe, a gallery cafe that overlooks our shop in Spencer Street, and our original cafe, actually 25 years old this year, in New Antrim Street. They shut. We shut those a couple of days actually before the lockdown was announced on the Friday, I think it was, and the Saturday in Spencer Street. And then what I didn't realize, and our staff didn't realize, is actually closing a restaurant is like a full-time business. It's something, we're rarely shut. We'd be shut for a couple of days around Christmas time. But when you actually have to close down restaurants, and I think anyone in the trade will have said this, it takes such a long time to turn off all those machines that are constantly on and organize the food. We did a lot of deliveries to the hospital and to frontline workers and prepared a lot of food, and our chefs were brilliant and came in and made a lot of things that went with a couple of people who were either doctors or were working with nurses. And we actually continued a little bit of that service in collaboration with a few of the people working up there. But basically the point was it took a very long time to actually physically close down that side of the business. The other side of the business, which was our food shop on Spencer Street, we actually decided to shut on the Saturday, and I woke up in the middle of the night on Sunday, and something in me said, we have to try and keep this open. We're a food business, we can offer a service. And I knew that because frontline workers were coming into us all the week before, down from the hospital, maybe if they were only 5 or 10 minutes. We had the Garda station beside us there as well. And if even it was just to get a coffee or something to take out, we immediately physically changed our business and shoved our counter up to the front so no customers came into the shop, and created an environment that we felt was in collaboration with our advisors, our EHO, that we were able to kind of structure it in such a way that we only let 2 people into the shop. And we had, thankfully, a brilliant team that were still willing to work, people who were able to still work in our kitchens, in our fronts. So that allowed us also to stay open. And from that, we just basically did everything we could to get our product to people. As Anne was talking about, what we couldn't offer anymore in either our business was any kind of an experience. And that, I think, is what people have been craving. People have been able to get food throughout this whole lockdown, but it's the experience that goes with it. It's going to be changed forever, I believe, but also it's going to take a very, very long time for it to come back in any sense of normality. But we were able to deliver food. We had people ringing from Castlebar, living in Australia, a lady in Belgium, one person in New Zealand. And orders would come in multiple formats that we weren't really used to dealing with. I mean, we would get the odd email before, but generally everything was done by phone. But we had to deal with Messenger, WhatsApp, and a myriad of digital solutions. So you would arrive into work in the morning and there'd be about 5 platforms to look on. food that people were looking for, but also to be delivered to their parents, for example. And we were able to do that. People who could be able to get homemade food throughout Castlebar, and then we actually started a delivery service within a 20k radius on Saturdays only. So that really felt a valid service. I know John would have massive experience of that, and obviously his team were doing amazing work getting food to people around when they could not physically leave their houses. And what we didn't expect was the overwhelming appreciation that we got for being able to do that service. You know, that just people were genuinely delighted to be able to get a taste of normality, of something, some connection, pleasurable connection to a part of their day that was gone. And whereas it was hugely challenging to try and completely transform your business, it ultimately was extremely satisfying to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think one of the memories that we have many memories of the lockdown and after the lockdown, and I suppose like people were always kind of on about, oh, the queue outside rule was big today, the queue outside rule was back to, you know, so it was great to see that level of business, like, and I think people were really searching out just for that normality, that coffee and a little bit of lunch or whatever that they were so used to, and it was comforting for them. So I think I have to say fair play to you for getting back in home, because I know, as you said, closing down a food business, as I know myself, is a challenge. You have all the food and machinery to worry about, and opening up again, it takes a lot of motivation. So I have to commend you on that. And with as regards to staffing, did you find much problem retraining the staff? Or, you know, like last week we had to talk about HR, and we know there will be issues with HR, but as regards the staff coming in and new setup for them, how did you find that?
So I suppose from the word go, and John would have this as well, you know, people were coming back, but we actually physically never closed. So we didn't have really a massive amount of time to go, okay, this week we're going to discuss what happened. Like we were having like our restaurant in Spencer Street turned into probably the office in Castlebar. And we would have daily meetings up there. A couple of our team who were just really fantastic in problem solving, and that's what we sat down with, a myriad of problems, everything. But specifically to answer your question, we obviously the guidelines that came down, our EHO is absolutely fantastic and provides with guidelines as well. And you know, risk assessments, the HSA have a couple for new businesses that are reopening at the moment, and everyone has to come back a risk analysis where their points are. The HSA have two really good checklists, which kind of it's number 5 and 2 particularly, and they're just really good for box tickets for going through what has to be gone through with everyone returning to work, and educating them, and even stuff like sending them videos and proper etiquette with hand washing, from everything like that to, you know, distancing in the workplace and just being able to control stuff in more challenging areas like kitchens. There's been some fantastic documents available, so we've used a lot of those resources as well. But no, there's been a willingness. I think, you know, people are coming back now as well. They're absolutely delighted to come back to work, and obviously there's concerns, but once, you know, you try to put things in place, and there are challenges involved in it, and we have not fully figured it out for the restaurant situation yet. Yeah. That's definitely a work in progress. And we are not going to open either cafe on the 29th of June. On that day, because we need more time to do it properly. And I'm not saying slow and steady wins the race, but we have a business that's been open all along, thankfully. But to get to the other sides of our business, I want to do that as properly and as safely as I can, and that might just take a few days longer than the 29th of June.
And do you see going forward, Aran, like that this has created a different opportunity for your business? That you say you were developing this side of the business, but do you think the culture for your business has changed for the long term, or how do you see it in the future?
So I think now, if you're in any form of hospitality, I think everyone needs to shape their business to be, I'm going to say COVID ready, but you know, even if COVID is dealt with, and, you know, I suppose the WHO are even saying at the moment that it's not if, it's when there's a second wave. And that's not to be the Grim Reaper about that, but you know, I think we can get ready and everything can reopen, and then September, October comes, and it's all in the back of our minds, but it's very hard to deal and fathom that at the moment. But I think everyone has to have a system that they can go back to, or that can fulfill the requirements that may be laid down if there is a second wave. So I think that we've seen the restaurants that have stayed open have developed some sort of takeaway service or some sort of a market service. And I think probably every business in future food business will be basing their experience around being able to do that. Should this happen again in a year's time or 2 years' time, you can be able to transform, to be able to, if you can't deliver the experience, to be able to give your product to people, or to be able to get your product to people. Being digitally savvy as well, and being able to have an app that can easily run a click and collect service will be absolutely essential going forward. And I think, education on that will be absolutely vital going forward, that you have a system that you can deliver that product using digital technology, and just be able to transform your business should you need to, as opposed to just a sit down environment where you're actually, people are coming in and you're giving them food, but you've also got to provide them with an experience that might not be there forever.
Yeah. And do you think, like with your changing practice of the business, that this might affect your marketing as regards, will you be looking to market Rua differently, or just add on to what you're marketing at the moment?
I think the future for our business was, like, we love food retail. We love every side of our business, and we started as restaurant people, and that's what our business is primarily known for. We've also got a shop. The last, you've seen the trend in the last 10 years. Everyone's in a rush. Everyone wants to go somewhere quickly. I think the trend in food is definitely towards healthy fast, and that's not a revelation. You certainly see that, that people want to eat quickly, but they don't necessarily want to eat, fried food or fast food. So there's definitely an element to that. We've seen the coffee market change in the last few years as well. There's obviously a huge demand for that as well. In terms of how COVID has affected us going forward, we were kind of progressing on that route anyway, where we do realize that there's two markets. There's one that wants to come in and have that experience, which is getting more challenging to provide, although we love to provide it. But there's the market where people are able to come in and get your product and leave your premises. That's definitely something that we have to get better at, and be able to offer to our customers all the time.
Yeah, I suppose one of the questions, was there anything that COVID brought that was a good thing for your business, that made you look at your business differently, that you might say, do you know what, this will work in the future?
Yeah, totally, John. There's so many different things we tried. Some of them may work in the future. The Bosca Rua that we developed, which is, I was inspired by a couple of businesses, but we saw that if we could send a box, so just something nice from Rua. So we put in some of our key products. We got some beautiful coffee that's roasted by Bean West. Some of our own shortbread, which is kind of a unique thing that we do. When you get a coffee, you get a homemade piece of shortbread. One of our banana breads and stuff that has more than a couple of days shelf life on it. So you can go to our website now and you can send a box anywhere in the country. We do a once a week shout out, and that's nothing we would probably never have considered before. We do gift vouchers online, and that's it to them. But we were looking at building a shop, that people can send some, but we're a restaurant business, so it's hard to send your product. So, but we realized that somebody said to us, you have a lot of fans, and like, we want to be able to send something from a place that we love to somewhere else, or to somebody else who has visited your place. So we're doing well on those. I'd say definitely, hopefully that's something that will keep going. I think, yeah, anything online or anything that can accelerate people getting your product using technology, something we have to look at, even if that's us being able to put our daily dishes, in a way that people can come in and they'll know what they're going to order. It speeds up the process when they come in. We cheekily did a Deliveroo service, which was stealing or borrowing, I'll say, the name of the biggest food delivery business in the country, but it was just a cheeky thing that we did for a few weeks while we were providing a service where there was people cocooning around town, and we were able to get food to them. So we did that. I don't think that's going to be viable as people can come out, so we're actually not going to be doing a delivery service going forward. that was just a way that we reacted to get our product to people. But ultimately, we still want people to come and visit us. But yeah, definitely an online presence and using our technology to let people know what's going on in our business and getting out some part of our product to them as well.
Yeah, and just finally, as regards the hospitality in general, like for pubs and restaurants, it looks like the 2 meter rule is going to go down to 1 meter. But I think there are a lot more challenges out there for it. How do you see that the hospitality market for the next few months and the future in general?
So people in the restaurant industry will have known Adrian Cummins has been a great spokesperson for the restaurant age in the Restaurants Association. They've been chipping away, trying to be realistic about, the two concerns, which are straight away as business versus health and safety. And they're the two things that have kind of been at loggerheads in terms of, we know the safest thing is for no one to come into your building. Like that is definitely has been the safest thing through COVID. But as businesses have to reopen, there's been a sit down and working out. And then last night, the announcement came out that 2 meters will return to 1 meter, where customers are not staying for longer than 90 minutes, which I think is pretty much, certainly most of our businesses, you'd hope that's, people will sometimes stay longer, but generally in a kind of cafe experience, people will leave for 90 minutes. So that's changed to 1 meter. To be honest with you, what I think the hospitality, I think everything's going to reopen. I think people are going to invest. I think the challenge is not just putting the things in place, but that the public adhere to them, and that's the real challenge. And if I think that's going to dissipate naturally as people become more relaxed and everything opens up, until I actually think it's going to be changed for it. I think people are going to return to normal. There'll be a couple of indications, such as there'll be some spacing, and this is post-September, post-August, where it's almost going to be back to normal. I'm not saying I fear that, but my prediction is that's what will happen. There will be posters up and there'll be sanitizer, but I think there's going to be a natural move towards that. I think a lot of the issues for food businesses are behind the counter, not necessarily with the public and the spacing. I think that's kind of matter of fact, and that's, you've got a certain amount of control over that. But people in kitchens, that's very challenging. Behind counters where there's multiple servers going on coffee and thing, I think that's a real challenge for food businesses. And that's where I think the challenge lies for hospitality. I think that if we can get through this year and there's no resurgence of it, I think there'll be definitely a move towards what it always was. It's just what happens in the future, and if there's a second wave, then I think we could be looking at a very changed reality.
Perfect, Aran. Thank you very much for coming along today and having a chat with us. And as I said, you have to be congratulated on how quickly your business changed and offering the service that you do. And I think it's been great for Castlebar to have that service in Castlebar. And thank you very much for speaking today. I really appreciate it.
It's no problem, John. It's been brilliant, and it certainly wouldn't have happened without the brilliant team that we have here, and coming into work during a time when we, when it was as serious as it was, but also that our loyal customers around town, now coming from other towns as well, coming back to us, and it's overwhelming to see it and see the appreciation that was there for our business. And thanks a million for inviting me today, and good luck to you all with your businesses.
Thank you, Aran. Perfect. As I said, that absolutely great. Just to hear the practical side of things is very important for business that open, and that hope that it is doable and it is viable going forward. Of course, there will be challenges, but as Aran knows, there is a bright light out there, and yes, we have to change. But with the support from Castlebar people and the loyal staff that we have, I think every business can look forward to a bright future, but it will be different. As I said, just if you want to ask a question in the chat box, just type in your name and your name of your business. We have Jean Toy from Cosmic Creations there. So as we're going along, if you have any questions, just type it in the chat box and we'll say hello or ask the questions at the end. So the next speaker today is John Page. He's the manager from Supervalue in Castlebar. And as I said earlier, they have been open the whole way through. No break for John, I'm afraid. They've offered great service. I've been in there, and you can see the staff going around with the shops of the baskets and the trolleys, and even my neighbour across the road. I see the Supervalue van arriving every week, and I have to say it is a great service in the town of Castlebar, and I have to say fair play to John and his team in Supervalue for providing that service. Hello, John, and thank you very much for coming on board.
Thanks, John, for the invitation, and thanks very much to both Anne and Aran there. It's an honour to be invited to speak alongside you. You both did very well.
Thanks, John. I suppose you, as you know, it was a shock to a lot of us in business that we're closed down, but for you, you hadn't closed down, but even more, you probably had a lot more to do as regards you had to remain open. And what was the most difficult thing in the beginning about the lockdown that you had to deal with from day one?
Yeah, I suppose, John, we were classed as an essential business, but from the very start, it meant that we had no major guidelines from the government as to about what we had to do or how we were to go about our business. We were just classed as an essential business, and we were told to stay open. And I suppose that was the most difficult thing. And similar to what Aran said, we were faced to make a lot of decisions in quick succession without major guidelines. Now, Supervalue structure themselves and head office were quite good. We're managed by the umbrella group of Musgrave, and they had a lot of knowledge and they shared that with each store, but that was only so much. But similar to Aran, like, we had to juggle decisions very quickly around, well, can we stay open? Can our counters stay open? Will we just stay open as the supermarket but close the fresh food counters? From a legislative point of view, we had also concerns from staff. Did they feel safe working? Were they willing to work? And we had a number of staff who had vulnerable people at home and weren't comfortable working, and we had to accommodate them as well. One thing, we have 88 staff. We lost 10% of our staff overnight because they weren't comfortable working or for various reasons. But I took the decision. I said at the beginning of this, we didn't know what this was about. And I took the view, I said, if you were uncomfortable working, there was no pressure on absolutely anybody. If they wanted to stay at home or if they needed time off, we accommodated everybody. And I think that was very important. We also then had to, I suppose, deal with customers. There was a fear factor out there as well, because this kind of happened really on the flick of a switch on that Thursday morning. Everything just changed. And just like that, there was very little warning. And customers were fearful. They were nervous. There was a lot of the older customers just shut the door and didn't come out. Now they put other things in place, obviously, and the community spirit that Aran talked about there, and yourself, John, was huge and came just again like another switch that was flicked. Community spirit was massive around the place. We also then had to deal with suppliers. Their ability to deliver, were they comfortable delivering? Some people weren't, and they just stopped. They pulled the plug straight away. Other suppliers weren't able to get stock because we're obviously an island nation and we have to import a lot of product. And you would be surprised how much product comes from Italy and Spain and the UK. And, you know, unfortunately, those three countries were very much compromised in terms of maybe being able to get in and get out of there and get product from there. So there was a number of issues and situations we had to deal with very, very quickly. And then I suppose Aran mentioned there about the digital aspect of life and how things are influenced, I suppose, by media. And it's something that we came to understand, I suppose, or to realize very quickly. And you'll all have been aware of the last weather warning that we had, and there was a run on bread, and it kind of became the token gesture of when you've got your bread when there was a storm coming. And I've used this analogy in our business. The initial demand was for paperware. You couldn't get enough toilet roll or kitchen towel. And then it moved on to pasta and pasta sauces. And then it was home baking items. It was fresh poultry, and then eggs. And there are reasons why each of them became scarce, but mainly it was driven by pure panic buying, led by social media, and maybe influenced and shared by people who didn't know better. Like the rumors that were started around the flour situation is that, you know, they ran out of paper. Ridiculous stuff. Like, the amount of people that told me that they can't get packaging. It was pure demand. Like, demand for those items. The fact that places like restaurants and coffee shops were closed. And if you think about anybody's working week and even school lunches, or anybody who is out or working or doing something every day, you have your breakfast at home and you may have your dinner at home, but you probably have lunch or tea out. either be it in the staff canteen or in a coffee shop or a restaurant. And now that all those areas were closed, people were buying more and they were eating at home, and there was more people were at home. So demand for all those kind of categories of product, you can understand how they happened, but they were driven by media, and that became very hard to manage. And as I say, if I went back to the Thursday, every time there was an announcement from the government, our job became more difficult because it created an irrational buying pattern straight away. And as I say, it was just like flicking a switch. So on that Thursday morning, I was in Westport for a meeting, and I came back, and the place was bedlam. There was people everywhere, and we ran out of small trolleys. It was ridiculous. And that week was like Christmas week in terms of sales. And again, last month I placed my Christmas order for December coming. So we spent 6 months planning for 10 days of sales traditionally, and we got 5 minutes notice for effectively Christmas Eve. And that was the most difficult part. Now we're very lucky because we have a 48-hour turnaround in terms of orders for the bulk of our product. But that's okay if it's a standalone, but you have the whole country in the same position. So no matter how big a warehouse is, it's only going to carry about 10 days stock or 15 days stock. And when demand for those categories went up by 200 and 300%, it put extreme pressure on supply chains. And I say it was the irrational buying pattern. People weren't buying one thing of hand soap, they were buying 10. Again, because, I heard on the rumor, saw it on Facebook, or I heard it on Twitter that it's going to run out and the factory is closed and the boats aren't moving. And that led to significant panic and very irrational buying patterns. And that was very difficult to manage. That has eased somewhat, but as I said to you and I explained there, has moved on from paperware to Italian sauces and pastas and things like that, to poultry. And the funny thing is, in Ireland, it's not funny, we eat an awful lot of poultry, which is a good thing, but a lot of it is eaten out in coffee shops and restaurants, and more so at home than your roast for a Sunday, the chicken, or at school times, people will buy chicken fillets and they make sandwiches. But the Irish market for chickens in that sense is led by patterns, and it takes 50 days to grow a chicken. So, there was huge pressure for demand for chicken because I say there was nothing available in restaurants or coffee shops because they weren't open, and we couldn't get chicken. It became very scarce very suddenly, and people didn't understand that chicken doesn't just appear out of the sky. We don't import enough, and there is huge demand in Ireland for Irish-based chicken. So it took 50 days. We're nearly out of the epidemic by the time that the chicken became available. So that created some constraints, and we were learning as we went in that, and I suppose they were the most difficult aspects to it. There was other things like, as Aran said there, where customers can't get into, and like a lot of our customers are older, and you would miss them straight away, even though there was an initial panic and everybody was kind of chasing their tail. We described it as firefighting for the first maybe 10 days until we tried to find our feet. And there was you missed people from the shop, regular people who would be in every Thursday or Friday or whatever day of the week. You missed them. But the good thing that came out of it, I suppose, was the community spirit was huge. And there was a very quick realization that community groups and voluntary groups can help out in this, and neighbours. And that was one of the good things that came out of it. But the most difficult thing was trying to manage the whole thing. There was so many balls to juggle in a very, very short space of time. And as I say, every announcement that was made started another very irrational buying pattern that took another day or two to settle down.
Yeah, and I know, as I know from our own shops too, the demand for certain products, as I said, the man that lives across the road from me, I was doing his shopping initially, but he took on Supervalue afterwards. I must have been doing the shopping too well, but his thing was lemon barley. I have searched the town for bottles of lemon barley. I'm going, I don't know what's the big craze for lemon. So if you can order in lemon barley for me, John, I'd be most appreciative.
I'll sort that with you, John. That's an easy one.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it just changed so quickly. The demand for products. Loo roll will be like the queue at Rua, be one of the resounding memories of this. Like loo roll and bacon products was just unbelievable. I suppose you didn't have it, I suppose, to sell. Was there a stage that you actually ran out of products like loo roll and bacon products?
Yeah, there was initially, because as I say, we would carry we get a delivery every second day. So you've kind of a 48-hour lead time. So we don't, like when I first started in retail, the boss told me, says, you don't make money off what's sitting outside. You make it from what's on the floor. So it was kind of a lesson to keep your stockroom tight and keep it, under control. So you don't carry a huge amount of that. And it's very big and it's bulky. So it takes up a lot of space for very little return. But yeah, it did get scarce. Now the branded stuff, people were looking for the bulk stuff. So like it was the bigger the packet or the bigger the quantity they could buy, that's what they wanted. And that became very scarce and we always had something. There were days we might have been very light in stock. You mightn't have had the brand that you were used to, but we would have had a version of it. Certain categories, like there was maybe a week at a time where we had no home baking flour. But that was just pure demand. Like the mills down the country, they're based in Leinster, most of them, and they were working 24 hours a day. And they had multiple shifts on, but they just could not produce it fast enough. Like even today, our home baking sales are about 250% ahead of where they should be, week on week on week. It's just, and again, it's to do with people being at home and they were baking more. And like we all saw, you know, and credit to Andy Moore in the movement in the gym, and I think even up to today, he still has a free class going every single day. But like there was loads of chefs and there was loads of gurus out there that were giving tips and hints and advice of how to cook and what to do and how to maybe, I suppose, entertain kids and stuff that were at home. But yeah, home baking is one that's still significantly challenged. And what we did find is that suppliers and producers then concentrated on what they could get out very, very quickly. So I don't know an awful lot about the milling of flour, but I do know that the easiest ones to produce are white flour and self-raising flour. And that's what is now is readily available in every shop. You won't get brown flour, you won't get extra strong flour, you won't get extra coarse wholemeal, you won't get the more ones that take time to produce. And if you apply the same analogy across the store, like our own brand products, like so the Supervalue branded products, for example, our breakfast cereals are made by Nestle. And again, their sales have quadrupled, and they only concentrate on their own brands. Sorry, their own branded products, so the Nestle Cheerios or Shreddies or whatever. They're not making ours, but they're not making them for Duns or Tesco either. It's just the way they're gone. They're prioritizing, and they're under significant pressure to keep up with demand. Some categories have settled, but some, as you mentioned, John, home baking and paperware to a degree has really settled. But pasta is still under serious pressure.
Yeah, I think I'm my mother's favourite son at the moment. I had 2 packets of wholemeal brown flour in the pub, and I showed up at my mother's door one day with them. It was like gold. She couldn't believe where I got it.
Yeah,
so,
it's very
yes, and
scarce.
I think we will all need Andy Morans and classes like that going forward, because I think we all ate fairly okay during the COVID, and coming out now we have to think about getting back into our routine again. Just as regards the regulations, John, do you think that social distancing has changed shopping forever, or, you know, and the social guidelines, not just social distancing, but the guidelines like going forward the next few months and the next coming years? How do you think it'll affect the on the floor shopping bit?
Yeah, I think it will change. I think it has changed significantly. It's funny, there are more and more customers are now more aware of it. Initially, as I said, there was the fear and people just wanted to get in, get what they could get and get home. And that's still there. People aren't hanging around. The chatting is not really part and parcel of the shopping anymore. The shopping used to be considered a social trip. And that's sort of gone out of it. The fun is gone out of it. It's more a chore, and it's you get in, you get what you want, and you get home. As regards social distancing, yes, people are very much aware of it. It has changed the patterns. People are now queuing at the meat counter, for example, and it's taken it's taken for granted that that's what you do. One thing that we would always have differentiated ourselves with from our competition is that we'd have more of a personal touch to a degree. So we didn't really have the queues, or we kind of made an effort that you wouldn't have the queues in our supermarket that you would have in some of the discounters, for example. And it was just something, when you're looking at a budget and you're trying to balance hours and wages and sales, and it would be something that you'd be banging your head against the wall, sometimes wondering, well, how can customers expect and accept to queue in the discounters, but they don't accept it from us? And you kind of, at the end of the day, you kind of realize, well, that's why they're coming to us, and we have to make sure that we deliver on that we don't have queues. Whereas now it's accepted there are queues and they don't mind. And that's purely down to the social distancing. We can still serve as many people, but we don't have, where we would have had maybe 3 or 4 people serving meat on a busy day at the counter, the most we can have now is 2 to 3 in a busy day to observe the social distancing rules. People are much more, I suppose, respectful in the aisles as well. If they notice that there's 1 or 2 or 3 trolleys in an aisle, they skip one and they go on and do the next one. There is no major, people are more understanding of that now, that it's going to take a little bit longer. That, I suppose, is a big change. And also people's, when they're stopping to talk to you, And I suppose it's something that we've instilled in our staff as well, that the onus is on our staff to make customers aware that, you know, social distance is important, and don't kind of come too near to us when they're looking for stuff. So as I say, the social thing is kind of gone out of it. It's more a chore now, and it's in, get what you want and get out.
Yeah, and I suppose just the final question, just going forward, like the future of shopping, obviously online shopping has just gone crazy, like as I said, your deliveries, but just like I asked Aran, what do you see that might work better in your business going forward, and has it created an opportunity for you in your business? You know, that a positive from COVID, I suppose, is, you know, what I'm looking for.
Yeah, well, I suppose the online is huge, and I suppose really online, the same as everything, is a significant part of our future. Now we had a very small, I suppose, online business. We have a large home delivery business, but our online aspect of that would have been quite small. It's about 1 or 2% of our business at most. And like this overnight, this again jumped. It quadrupled. We would employ about 2 people every day to pull orders to get ready, and we had to go to 6. That involves significant strain on resources and getting them trained up to get the shopping out. But has that stayed? Yes, it has. And online, I think, will be a bigger part of our business going forward. Supervalue, because we're part of the Musgrave Group, we can kind of, you know, they kind of do a lot of that work for us in terms of providing us with the platforms to advertise and communicate via Twitter and LinkedIn and so on. So I think we've already got that. It's certainly very, very active since this started, and even while things are settling down now, online is still very, very active. I think that's going to continue. And I think, as Aran mentioned, it's kind of sort of in the back of all our heads that phase 2 of this could come at any time. And if it's not going to be COVID, it could be something else. And I think that this might have been a steep learning curve for people. And people, you know something, they tried the online shop and they're not afraid of it. It was a bit of trial and error, and they're getting confident with it. But so are we. The business are getting confident with it. You heard Aran describe there how he learned how to maybe do things quite somewhat differently to get his product out there. So I think that will be there for us all, both customers and retailers. And I think it will be very important going forward, because this won't be the last of this.
Yeah. John, thanks very much for that insight to how you got through COVID. As I said, it's a credit to you and your team at Supervalue for providing the service that you did during the time. For people living alone, you did the deliveries, the service was unbelievable, and thank you very much for that service. And thank you for coming along today to speak to us. Very enjoyable, I have to say. I just want to say, start wrapping it up. I see Aidan McNulty from the Western Peoples enjoying WoW, and Eileen Bulger. It's great. We have great numbers on today. So we have the links. If you want to email the chamber at chamber@castlebar.ie, we have the links for the last 3 weeks now. We'll have them up tomorrow. So there's videos on HR, there's video on health and safety, and again, we have sales videos which will be going up today. Next week, we're going to be doing social media. As our speakers today have said, the way forward for a lot of businesses, it's not possible for every business, will be the digital media. Shopping online is a big threat, and you have to change your business if possible. Again, it's not possible for every business. So we'll be running through that in our final workshop on Wednesday, the same time next Wednesday. So final thing I want to say to do is thank Anne and Aran and John for taking their time today. And it was a really good and great advice in the sales techniques, I have to say. Aran, the practicalities of operating and changing your business, and for John for operating through the COVID, really gave us an insight. And I want to thank you, the three of you, very much. I also want to thank Ger, who's on the IT today and helping me out on the Zoom. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to keep it under the hour, 4 minutes to go, and let everyone go back to the day. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next Wednesday at the same time. Thank you very much, folks. Bye now.